Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. Hope you're all well who's watching and listening. Today we're joined by John and Francis. How are you both?
Good, mate.
Coming here from my prison cell. But we're all right.
That room looks like we're in a really narrow hallway and you're just been locked out of every room in your house there. Like. But I think that they explain it your way on work purposes, so we'll just leave it at that. We're already joined by Egyptian Kings in, Craig White the Legends in, Dodgers in. With a name like that, Dodger, join our membership club at 99p a month. That's dodgy as well. Awfully done, Kenny McCardle. Absolutely fantastic for you to be joining us this early on.
Welcome.
And we'll get into it. This Super 6 thing that Ross set up at the moment. Well, earlier on it was 10. Now we're up to 13 members. We'll have new members who's joined today. So if you want to get onto that, there's a link.
You fucked it right after the bat by forgetting to put your scores in.
What score? Well, listen, I'm going to get to that. I've an actual excuse, okay? So bear with me. But I mean, if you want to get on it, there's the league code as well. You just follow the membership and you download the app and you can join it via that. And we'll get into the tables now. It's quite interesting to read this table because first place is Francis Carty with our very own with 14 points. Just behind him in second place is Stephen Wright with 13 points. That's good. Sean Ross comes in at third with 11. Kevin Hampsey with 8 points. Phil Tomlinson with 8 points. Ross Muir with 8 points. John Tomlinson, 8 points. Mark Maguire, 8 points. Alistair Jack, 8 points. William Dobbin, 8 points. Jimmy McElduff, who does join today, with 4 points. And Kevin Gallagher and myself on 0. But listen, there's an absolute brilliant excuse for why that didn't happen, me predicting the scores, because I'll be totally honest, I fucking forgot, lads. I just did. I forgot. But here, I'm gonna be on it this week, and it'll be good crack. And again, for anyone who wants to get into that, join the Super 6 Endless Celts Championship. There's a league code there as well. Just to come to yourself, Francis, how'd you pull that off?
Just came my shit, eh?
Sheer fucking luck like anybody else.
That's correct.
But there's William, Patrick McLaughlin, and Monty's in as well. But we'll get crack right into it, boys, into what we're here to talk about. And that's the trip to Ross County. And I'll start with yourself, Francis. And as we always do, it's kind of a tradition now in this podcast. Just a brief review, a summary before we get stuck into player performances. I think the game went overall.
It was a struggle, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some media, I know we'll get into that, but some media outlets will have you believe it was a struggle for us. But I was on reflection, it was a really comfortable performance. I sat and watched it with Ross on his not illegal stream. So we were saying what Ross is obviously. I'm a wee bit like you, Stephen, get caught up in the emotion too much and maybe get a wee bit drastic in my thinking. And Ross, in fairness to him, kept on saying, we've got to score. And I'm sitting, I know, but I'm sitting going, bastards, we're fucking not got to score. But we did. I mean, we were comfortable. We always looked, when you do look at it, we always looked like scoring. And it was a comfortable performance, Stephen. Great goals. Just try like Kyogo's first goal. I suppose we'll call it like they always say it's movement in the box is key, but his lack of movement was actually what was really good about that goal. He knew not to make it. He just stopped his run and knew that was the movement, so to speak, to make. And then obviously you lost the goal. It's a wee bit of it was a weird goal to lose. It was different for Jenz, I think. It has to be stronger, but it wasn't a powerful header, but it was one of the ones where Hart left it for, I think it was Taylor, and Taylor's left it for Hart, and whereas both of them should just really try and deal with it and clear it. And then obviously after that, Hart redeems his tail a bit and makes a great save. Then obviously Jenz gets a goal, then Abada scores a great goal just to sort of just to finish off the performance and yacht away three assists in that. He started the season flying, so it was a good performance in what could have been a tricky ground, Stephen, with being early, like second game of the season. It's never necessarily can be easy to go up to Dingwall and stuff, so it was good to get a good performance.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of love at the minute, John, within the comments. You can see them as well as me coming in live here with Jada. Everyone's mentioning how easy it was for him. And as Francis rightly said, it was a brilliant point. We need it rescued, according to certain factions of media organisations within football. But it was anything apart from that. I know, obviously, as Celtic fans, we all get obviously into the fear, and I think Monty was saying there it was comfortably in, but he was getting the fear. I was getting it too. I'm not going to deny it, but when you look at it overall, take off the kind of panic and the emotion you're feeling when you can see that goal, and it does control it with ease. I mean, Jota was fantastic. He's an absolutely unbelievable player, and as Franny said, he likes a comfy 2-0 victory, but we'll take a comfy 3-1.
No, listen, like Franny says, man, every time Ross County always give you a tough game when you go away, and Dingwall's a hard place for us, and that's not because we're not capable. Like we comfortably controlled everything, and the match was like you says, Francis, Ross was like, a goal's coming. I think we all kind of felt that it was just a matter of time. But as time went on, and it was later, it's like you started getting images again of the whole thing for last season when it was like a last minute thing, like Ralston scored, and you were kind of thinking, is it going to be the same again? But we definitely controlled the game. I don't think that was ever in question. But they defend really, really well, and they're very organised. And we say the same about like when we go to Livingston and we play these teams, they all sit back and they like to sort of like pack the box, and they make it difficult for us, and we don't help ourselves because we do the same thing over and over again. We try and play it out wide, get it into the box, and it's always a tough game, but I thought we were magnificent, and like you say, Jota has been absolutely unreal. That goal against Aberdeen, and then 3 assists the weekend. Who's it? Somebody said something in the comments here about the just give him player of the month and goal of the month now, because it was unreal. But listen, that Abada's effort, man.
He's got a good case for goal of the month already as well.
The build-up play for that goal,
Exactly.
and then the way he turned and took it, it was. I keep saying this in the chat, but I'm going to say it on this and embarrass myself. But it's Abada Cadabra, because that was fucking magic. I'm here all week.
No one's going to pick you on that one, so.
Listen, we taken it well, man. And we did in the end. We won it comfortably, and I thought Jenz had a cracking game as well for a competitive debut. And by the way, I think we'll get into it, I'm sure, but I think Starfelt's definitely got competition in his hands. Like,
we're definitely going to get into that, and I think William comes in here for a great point. Carbon copy of Livy at home last season. The difference is now this team always finds a way to win. People have to remember that as well. It's absolutely fantastic that Postecoglou's had time in pre-season, not to worry about obviously these qualifiers, so he's had more time to implement his kind of training philosophies. And you see Joe Hart even saying that himself. He's learning again a different way of playing this summer because he wants to be higher up the pitch. But we'll start with yourself, John, and Francis said about it. Kyogo, his movement for that goal. What he just stayed still. I watched like the photos, looked at the photos because you can't watch photos, you know what I mean? Looked at the photos that were online, and someone pointed out, one of them analytics people was like, he just stayed still in the box and waited in that cutback, and he took it really well. And even in the first half, there was a time where he tried to play the ball around the corner. He got it back again from a ricochet, and he fired in a cracking shot, but their keeper made a great save. But how important is it for Kyogo being back among the goals? And he said already he wants to be hitting 30 plus, like, so that's a big aim for a fantastic player.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he's more than capable of hitting 30, and I think he showed that last year. And if it were Barry's injury, he probably would have been close. We were lucky as well that we had somebody like Giakoumakis to come in and fill that gap, because he's another player that you can rely on to score goals. But I definitely, for that first goal, it surprised me because Kyogo's normally somebody who's constantly moving, and he's constantly trying to get in behind his man, and so for him to be where he was a bit unlike him. But again, he done what he needed to do. He scored a goal. He said he goes off the mark, and he's started his season off with a nice wee strike. So I think come the end of the season, he's going to be running about the 30 mark. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, I think it's like as well that obviously Franny, we missed him for like a large chunk of last season, and you kind of missed how important he was to the team. And Giakoumakis come in and rightly had that mantle towards the end of the season, becoming top goal scorer effectively from 12 games. But Kyogo, for me, he's just fantastic. And as John said, he's always on the move, and it sometimes annoys the life out of me that players don't pick out his runs. You see him making them darting runs, and he doesn't get frustrated. He just keeps going. He does it and does it again until someone finds him. And I think John's right. I don't know about yourself. I think 30 goals for him is more than achievable, like, isn't it?
I think, I mean, it's going to be hard for both of them, like him and Giakoumakis, get 30 goals. It's got just with the amount of games both would need to play to achieve that. But if one of them stakes a claim for the number 9, so to speak, both of them are capable of doing it. Obviously, fitness will depend a lot of that, but like you two have touched on there, it's you just look at what they've done in essentially half a season. They've got a good goal tally in. No me.
They missed nothing. They missed nothing. It's me. I don't know what's going on with it. It's
Take the
done.
battery at it.
Blank.
Take the battery at it.
I'm not doing it live.
That's a warning, Stephen. I mean, I would not be a good electrician if I didn't point this out to you. That's a warning that you need to change your battery. But Kyogo is definitely got a man if he stays fit to get the 30 goals. It's always good for your strikers to score early on in the season, so it's not dragging on. So he's got off the mark early with a nice goal. Like you say, he's just not. As we say, the key is sometimes say the key is movement, but sometimes that movement doesn't need to be much. It's just check your run and just stop. Because a lot of folk, obviously, Jota's got to pick the pass out. It'd have been easier for him to run to the front post or just run at the middle of the goal, but just kept it back, and Jota's picked him up. And I think either striker is, if they play regular enough, either one of them have got it in them to bang in 30 goals this season. I'm confident both of them will get 20. Because I think they're going to rotate. I think they will rotate a wee bit. So I think 30 might be a big ask just down to the game time. I think both of them will get if they're both fit.
Yeah, I mean, we did see it there, John. Kind of Kyogo stayed on the pitch and Giakoumakis came onto the pitch. And was that like a move by Ange to get a goal? Or do you think he's actually physically trying that out to see if it can be viable for league games and European competition? Because I think if they click, there is a chance for them to explode together. Because you have that, I know it's an old cliche, but the big striker, wee striker, bit of Finnegar, Heslick and Skippy there, do you know what I mean? But again, totally different opposite players. But that's what I'm trying to say. Do you think there's an option for that going forward? Because we've seen it happening there in Dingwall.
I think you've got a case for both. I mean, we did need the goal, so bringing on Giakoumakis at that point, I think most of us were kind of screaming for it. But it was interesting to see him actually go for Kyogo and Giakoumakis because it's not something we've seen really in the past, and I thought it worked really, really well. And it looked to be a partnership that could be worth looking at and experimenting with a wee bit more going forward. I will say this about Maeda as well, though, on that left. I think somebody mentioned that. I can't mind who it was. Sorry, but the left-sided position. It seems like he's the starting guy for Ange, and there's no denying his work rate. But I think he's probably better suited to coming on in the later end of the game when everybody's legs are tired, and then trying to do what he does. Because for me, his movement and everything else in his work rate is undeniable. I mean, we can't really question that. But he seems to be a wee bit scared to actually run at a defender, or he doesn't seem to be capable of beating a man. He doesn't really try it as often as well, and he likes to just pass it back. And I think that can hurt us sometimes because, like I said, we dominated possession against Ross County, but there was moments where you were looking at that and you were going, maybe if Jota was out there on the left, he would come and cut inside, and Abada. I think Jota and Abada would be the preferred, for me anyway, the preferred starting left and right side, because they both like to attack their man, whereas Maeda doesn't he?
Yeah, I think that's a great shout, Franny. I mean, I do get what you're saying about Maeda, because sometimes you look at him, he's kind of dragged the opposition player out, and he just goes back again. It's a bit frustrating, but it kind of goes back to the point as well, where you're looking at it. I don't think that's his game. He doesn't seem to have lots of skills or trickery. I think he kind of thrives on the breakaway, get in behind and cut in from a cross on the right-hand side. He kind of wins the flick-ons, because he nearly scored a good goal against Ross County there. He does kind of improvise and hit it with his heel, and their keeper Ledlow did a good save. But I do get that there has been a lot of talk about that in the comments, whether Jota should be out on the left. And
see what Kaiser's saying here as well. Remember, like we seen it, Didier Agat was the perfect example of somebody who utilised his pace. Like he would just knock the ball past a man and then just fucking chase it, and there was no hope of catching him. And Maeda's in a similar sort of. I think that he could do that as well if he drops back a wee bit, picks the ball up, and then he can knock it by his man and then chase it and put yourself in a position to create something, rather than just doing what he does. Because if it seems like when he's playing, when we cut it out to him on the left, it's not going anywhere. he's not going to cut in, because, like you said, it doesn't seem like that's his game. He's not going to cut in. And he's just going to look for another pass, and 9 times out of 10 he's just cutting it back. So I think you're kind of losing something out in the left by starting him, but I definitely think he's got plenty to offer.
Patrick says.
That's what I'm saying. If Maeda drops back and let's like, you've got Taylor or Bernabe who are going to overlap, right? If he drops back and you can play the overlap, he can still. He's got the pace to knock it by a man, regardless of where he is on the pitch. I don't think he needs to necessarily. I'm just using a guy as an example of somebody who utilised the pace, not necessarily positionally, but Maeda's got the pace to beat just about anybody in that. I don't think there's anybody who can match him pace-wise in the league. So why not utilise that? And like I say, I can't mind who it was, and again, I apologise, but somebody mentioned bringing him on sort of like the later stages of a game, maybe the last 25, 30 minutes or whatever the case may be, and then utilising him at full fitness and using his pace to beat a man with tired legs, because we can see he would run riot, I think. I just think we're losing something out in the left with Maeda at the minute, and I'm not saying he's not a good player, and he's definitely got a lot to offer, but for me, there's something missing.
I get what you're saying, but I mean, I kind of clocked that down, Franny. How long did it take John to go on his first tangent? But I do get what he's saying.
I mean, ring the bell, but your fucking smoke alarm's doing that for us.
No, but I do get what you're saying, Franny. Like, coming to you, obviously, we're talking about Kyogo and Giakoumakis potentially together because Postecoglou done that, but again, throw your weight behind that Maeda argument as well. What do you reckon on both kind of subjects?
I mean, Ange is clearly an intelligent manager. I don't think he just chucked on Giakoumakis and left Kyogo on just to try it out, especially when you're chasing a goal. Also, he's obviously done it to try and get the goal because we were dominant and in possession. You could afford to lose that player in midfield and get a more attacking. It kind of looked kind of went to a 4-2-4 sort of formation, sort of 4 attackers, if you like, and or maybe even you could argue a 4-4-2. I think we've said it plenty of times. Postecoglou seems set in this 4-3-3. That's not to say he'll not change it within the game. He'll maybe change it before a game, play a different system. I really just fucking phone just went mental there. Sorry, 2 seconds. Phone just went mental. My screen just went all blank. But so I don't. It's not to say that Postecoglou is so one-dimensional and will only ever play 4-3-3. Will make subs and it will still be 4-3-3. You're not successful as a manager. It's just no what it is. And I think it'd be a bit disrespectful to suggest that that's the only way Ange can play. Yes, he said that like this is the way he sees best to win football matches. So the majority of the time, that's probably what we will be doing, is the sort of 4-3-3. But I think Saturday showed that it's. So I think you'll maybe more see the Giakoumakis and Kyogo up front more in a home game. Maybe not necessarily. I don't think we'll see it much in Europe unless we're in a game and maybe chasing a goal. You'll maybe chuck it on then because he's maybe rather lose a game 2-0, having a go to try and get back in the game or whatever if there's a goal in it. But I think he's a bit setting. What's this? I think we may see it, but I don't think we'll see it on the regular, if I'm honest. As I say, he is set on like the sort of one focal striker, but like I say, it's not meaning he won't. He's so one-dimensional. With the Maeda one, I totally understand what John's saying, and it's a very valid argument. I think
it is.
I think obviously when Maeda came in last season, he was flying. I mean, he started the season really well, in fairness to him as well. And I think last season, a lot of folk, including myself, were like, well, Maeda is nailed down for the left-hand side because he's an Ange player. He's everything that Ange wants to start pressing for the front three and stuff. So it's Jota clearly does it, but I think Maeda does it so much better, and it's maybe one of the ones kind of like with Nakamura. He was a luxury player that you put up with.
Yeah,
he wasn't got to do the dirty work. Maeda obviously is doing the dirty work, but like John said, Jota's got to beat a man, create that space, like a wee bit of his trickery to get by somebody, more so than what Maeda does. So I think it's got to be, like Ross said, it's got to be playing the fixture I think you can argue, like John, Maeda running at a tired right back, so to speak, or a tired defence, 100% makes sense. But equally, him playing for 60, 70 minutes, getting the players knackered for them makes it a wee bit easier for Jota to then go by them. You can totally flip it. And I think both arguments are very valid, but it's what we kind of alluded to late on last season and the sort of start of this season. It's great options we're talking about here. We're arguing there. Two good players that bring two different things to the plate. And then, like John said, you've got Abada, who I wouldn't say he's forgotten about, but for his contribution last season, it's almost like it seems to be Maeda or Jota or Jota, and then Abada's coming in an argument then. But it's like we've said, it's a healthy argument to have, and I'd rather be debating there something like this and saying, "Oh, Ryan Christie's at right mid again." A centre midfielder's playing at left wing. At least we're arguing there guys that play in their positions, and they're both.
I'll tell you one thing.
They're both bringing good things to the table.
It's a luxury to have, isn't it? I think you're right to point out the side we're in now. And William comes in. Maeda will be indispensable for Champions League because he works as hard coming back the way as he does going forward. A great point. And great to have you watching the show, Paul McFarlane. He's dead set. Jota is by far our best left winger. And I think the stats kind of back that up.
It's got to just be one of them. It's got to be a wee bit.
It's a luxury.
Maeda could go on a run, like a mad run, and we'll be like, Maeda's the best left winger. Then Jota will come in and just go mental, and it'll be like, Jota's the left. It's a good one to be in. It's a good position to be in.
100%. I'm going to shine a light, John, on the defence.
I just want to touch on what William said there about Maeda as well. The Champions League is probably going to be where he's utilised best for me as well, and I agree with that because, like I said, in Scotland, 90% of the game, you're pressing teams high and you're controlling possession, you're dominating the game. And he's kind of, I don't know what the word, he's confined, I guess, in that sense. He's not running back all that much. You're not utilising his pace and his defensive abilities in that sense because we control the game in their half and we tend to just cut it around about the same sort of final third of the pitch. So in the Champions League, though, teams aren't going to sit back like a Ross County, a Livingston and all that against us, and we're going to need to track back and you're going to need to, like, say, Maeda to, especially if we're hitting teams on the counter, and you can knock a ball ahead of Maeda then, and he can chase it. And I think certainly it's much more advantageous, I guess, to use him in a setting like that where a team's pressing us, or it's kind of 50-50 and we're not dominating as much of the ball. But I fully agree.
Yeah, it's a great point because the game opens up more, doesn't it? And as you rightly said there, when you're against a stuffy defence, you're kind of limited in what you can do in terms of breakaway and trying to break teams down as well. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you look at it as well, John. I'll come back to yourself. I want to shine on defence here, and I know we're going to talk about Jenz, but I want to come to you about your favourite ever player at Celtic, and that's Greg Taylor. 2 games out of 2 in the league, and albeit his stats have backed him up, it looks like he's improving the game. He's got 1 man of the match award under his belt. Is it still a concern for you, though, that maybe Burnaby's not getting a sniff?
I'm not necessarily concerned he's not getting a sniff, but I still think Taylor's not the guy to take us forward. And if Burnaby's not the guy, and if he's not playing because Ange doesn't think he's as good as Taylor, then and he brought him in as backup, we still need a left back in that sense. And listen, Taylor did prove me wrong towards the latter end of last season, and he did. His game did improve, and I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody would agree with that. He came on leaps and bounds for the start of the season through towards the end of the season, but he's still he cannot cross a ball. I don't know what's wrong with him that he just can't get his foot under a ball, but it's mental. And we need somebody on the left side who can swing a ball into the box and get a bit of height in it, because I don't know what Taylor does, but he just, it's annoying. And it frustrates me every time I see him try to cross the ball because it just doesn't leave the ground at all. And it does my tits in.
I think though, like, you have to be fair. Like, he has improved as a player, but again,
I just said
I'm going to agree with what you said. It never really happens in this, in terms of, I think we can do better. Or he's fainted, Francis. But you look at Gregory, as we like to call him, and again, he seems to be a divisive subject, especially when people are talking about him in the comments and things. I will come to the comments shortly about that. But you look at it, yes, his stats are great in the SPL at the minute in terms of what he's doing and how he's contributing to the team. He's kind of took that inverted fullback role on really well on Durant, especially coming into the centre of the pitch. But like John, if Burnaby's not going to get a shout at the minute, I think it's what we still need another option there. The beef is for the European competitions.
I'm not, but then you could argue, is Bernabei not getting a game because of how well Taylor's performing? I think what I've seen of Bernabei, I think he's great going forward, but going backwards, wee bit suspect. His positional senses is needing a wee bit work on, but he's a young boy. He's had like sort of like 55, 60 games or something in professional football. A lot of that's down to COVID and stuff. I think he broke into the Lanos team just before COVID, and obviously they had the break in between. So he's not had a lot of first team experience.
Great knowledge there, Franny. Great knowledge.
See, you're not the only stat man. Someday, Phil McGinn will be straight in the comments and tell me I'm talking shit, like, but we'll just run with the now until he does. But I'm not going to sit here and profess to be Greg Taylor's biggest fan, but it was, like John said, like you've said, it was really good last season. It really grew into the season massively. He started great this season, like first game of the season, man of the match to an extent. Wasn't it for Jota's 3 assists? I think Greg Taylor have a good argument for man of the match again on Saturday. I thought he played really well. I get what John's saying with his crossing. It isn't the best. He's far, but as a footballer and on the ball and passing, I think he's really good. He's a really good passer of the ball, and he's really, really comfortable on the ball as well. Like, he'll take it in tight spaces. He clearly, probably, all right. Who gives a fuck? I'm running with it. Fucking, I would actually check my phone, but I'm feared to move it because it mucks about with my screen. So I think now you can't make an argument for Bernabei to be in instead of Taylor, and I think even Taylor's pressing has got a lot better, which obviously we've seen on Sunday with the third goal. He was there we go. I'll trust this guy before Monty. And so it's one of the ones. If I think Bernabei was brought in to be the number one left back, I think it's obviously Ange's hope that will happen in due course. It's clearly like you don't spend nearly $4 million on a guy just to sit on the bench. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. Bernabei for me has been brought in to be the number one left back. But Taylor's performing now, so why you can't be dropping the guy? I think the big test will be in Europe. It will be in Europe, but right now, I can't see how you can fault the guy right now. Taylor for me has not put a foot wrong in a long, long time.
Yeah, he is. To be fair, he is getting a lot of love in the comments. I haven't really seen any negativity towards him and what he can do. I mean, Danny Boy for me sums it up perfect here. Taylor will play about 60 of the season, so Bernabei will step in sometimes. It's about that rotation type factor that Ange always talks about, John. And to come back to it as well, we've seen a debut for Moritz Jenz, not Moritz Bar, that we had at right back at one point on loan from Stoke City, I believe it was. But we've got Moritz Jenz in now. He's made his debut. For me, he looked comfortable. He could play the ball with both feet, which was great to see. He looked quick. I thought he looked quick anyway, quicker than some defenders that we have, not to be named, but coming to yourself, you mentioned Starfelt here, and you're a big fan of Starfelt in terms of competition for places. Where do you see this one going at the minute?
Well, I mean, listen, it's difficult to say at this stage because, like I say, I kind of championed Starfelt last season, and he came on and he done exactly what we needed him to do, and he started to, again, he improved with each passing game, and he cemented his place. But Jenz came in and he's debuted. He looked the part, and he teamed up with CCV really, really well. They're both quite strong guys as well. Jenz has got the height, and he showed that he's like when he scored in his debut, his competitive debut. Starfelt's not scored yet, so Jenz has already got one up on him. In that case, but like you said, he looked comfortable on the ball. He can pass a ball. He's good with the ball at his feet. He likes to move forward as well. He's no shy to bring the ball forward. And he just reminds me of Julian and everything about Julian. When Julian first started, he was the exact same. And I know you're going on about that he's not got the pace and all that, but it's pish. But Jenz
Pitch.
definitely.
It's so evident.
It is
It's so
pish.
evident.
It's
Yeah.
no. But
No, it's not.
Jenz is, like I said, he is just in. It's difficult to say who's going to be starting, but he's put Starfelt on notice anyway, and he's definitely gave Ange something to think about, because I mean, you don't want to rush bringing Starfelt back. Like I says, you'll bring him on sort of. I think Starfelt, Jenz would maybe start, or when Welsh is back, maybe Welsh will start. I think Starfelt will kind of. Cheers, Monty.
I can't believe it took you that long to notice that.
I wasn't paying attention. But like I said, Starfelt will probably get minutes, like later stage of the game, to get minutes in his legs. He's not going to start anytime soon. He'll come on. Monty, go to sleep. when you said Francis and me were talking pish, I was all right. But no, that's nonsense. No, listen. Starfelt's not going to start anytime soon, so it's either going to be Welsh or Jenz. Jenz is not cemented, but he's put Ange on notice. He's put Starfelt on notice. He's there to fight for a place. He scored in his competitive debut. He looked really comfortable. So remains to be seen. But I don't think Starfelt's starting anytime soon. But I expect to see him feature on the bench more going forward, and probably get like maybe 20 minutes. If we're winning comfortable, it didn't happen against Ross County because it was 1-1 with 20 minutes to go. But if we've got a 2-0 lead, let's say, or we're comfortably in control of a game with 20 minutes to go, then I expect to see Starfelt getting some minutes in his legs.
Yeah, I mean, again, Franny, I've just realised sometimes I take my whole kind of negative thoughts towards Julian like really badly. So it's not even do you know what I mean? I like Julian for what he's done at Celtic Football Club. Let me put that on record. But it's clear to see. I mean, Ange doesn't fancy him, and I think we've all kind of agreed it's probably his personality more than anything that Ange doesn't kind of get on with, and that's fair enough. That's the way it happens sometimes, and he's out the door. And then you look at Welsh, Franny, before Jans got his debut, he didn't put a foot wrong. He looked decent. He unfortunately picked up an illness, obviously, getting into the game at Ross County. But what I was so pleased to see about Jans was he was big and physical, and he backed it up. He got a cracking goal. He was part of that header, and he loved it. And he's kind of took that Matt O'Reilly type fencer in the Celtic Football Club. They're always smiling. They're happy when they're being interviewed. He's fitted into the philosophy, let's say, of the manager straight away. He's there to play football. He already alluded to the fact that his main strengths of the game are taking the ball from the back and playing it in the midfield, and he can play in tight spaces and things like that. And Jed Thomas, another great point. Starfelt will not be risked on a plastic pitch. Again, you don't want to do that to a player come back from a long-term injury over the summer, obviously. But you look at it in terms of that. Jens, great performance all round. What are you thinking?
Funny Jed mentioned the plastic pitch, because I think a lot of Celtic fans judge Julian on a couple of performances on a plastic pitch and write him off against big attackers. But Jens, obviously it was a wee bit unfortunate for Stephen Welsh in his case that he obviously picked up an illness and missed out, because I think, considering his start last week, I think Stephen Welsh would have started. But then he just, with Ange, just didn't know. We've tried for, what is this now? Well, obviously a season with Ange, and I don't think any of us have actually picked a team right with him, so there was every chance that Jens was going to start. But Jens, he looked really good, and by all accounts, if we're led to believe, Jens was the guy that we wanted before Carter Vickers. So it's clearly a guy Ange has had an eye on, eventually got him in, and for me, obviously Carter Vickers' performances last season, there's no way he's not playing. He's the number one, and it's who plays next to him. And I think I don't want to criticise Starfelt, because he had shaky moments. He looks dodgy on the ball for it, like doesn't look comfortable on the ball. Just could be the type of player he is, but he just never once looked comfortable on the ball. Defending when he's not really got any time. Aerial duels, he tends to win 9 out of 10 of them. He rarely loses any of his aerial duels, any of his 50-50 battles. But it seems, obviously, like you touched on earlier, Joe Hart wants to play higher up the park. Clearly, Ange is trying to get us higher up the park. Jens looked so much more comfortable. Like Wally said, Ross said it as well, is Julian with the right attitude, it would seem. Julian, obviously, it's a player I really like, really, really did rate, but it must be an attitude thing. I can't think of any other reason why Julian's not on that team. So Jens, for me, I think I say it was a really solid performance. Was bringing the ball, taking the ball in really well. Looked comfortable on that. What we've been saying, we've been looking for a left-sided defender, and left-sided centre half, and he looked really comfortable in that position. It wouldn't surprise me if he nails down that position with CCV, and it'd be really, really harsh on Starfelt. Really, really harsh on the guy because, he had his shaky moments, gives away some dodgy fouls, but you can't discredit what he actually done and what was the best defensive sort of combination in the league last season. But what Jenz is giving us is that aerial threat, obviously in our own box, but in the opposition box, which Carter Vickers and Starfelt, unfortunately, aren't giving us. Aye, because I think that's why some of our set pieces probably, the stats on our set pieces probably aren't as great. We've not got that aerial threat. Now we've got it with Giakoumakis and now Jenz as well. So he looks the type of defender that Ange wants. I know Starfelt, Ange brought in Starfelt, but it does look uncomfortable on the ball. But whereas Jenz looks a lot more comfortable. I was really impressed with the boy.
Yeah, a great all-round performance in terms of his debut. And can I say, Anthony made a great point there previously. Thanks to everyone who's watching. We're over 60 live. I really appreciate everyone watching and commenting and interacting with us at the moment in this podcast. And also get involved in the Super Six. The league pin is there. Download the Sky app and you can get into that as well. Ross Muir of our podcast created that, so it's great fun to be involved in.
Totally free
and
as well. Totally free.
It's totally free. Yeah.
Totally free.
And the membership
totally free,
option.
You've got a chance of winning £1 million every weekend.
And the membership option, obviously 99p a month. You get that wee cracking emoji and stuff that John has made. It's just great. Get involved in it if you can. No pressure on anybody, but we appreciate all the support. But in terms of that, I want to bring up a comment here, John, right? And I'm going a wee bit back here because I want to see if I can find it, right? Frank Brennan, he gets a lot of, not hate, but he gets a lot of questions in the comments and being called negative and stuff. But sometimes I think he comes out with some good stuff. Sometimes, obviously, different opinions and all that. But sadly, Starfelt and Taylor are the prime suspects at this precise moment in time for costing us there in the Champions League. Of course, not forgetting our still lightweight in midfield as well. What do you think about that? I think that's being negative or being real?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of both. Listen, absolutely. I mean, we've said for day one, Greg Taylor's not going to be the guy to take us forward in the Champions League, right? Or at least I have. And I think most people have agreed. What Frank's saying there is like we've already making them. Is he implying we're already making them scapegoats before?
No, he's saying they're the prime suspects in terms of us dropping points or losing games.
I mean, it's hard to sort of say. And who's to say we're going to actually drop points and lose games? Well, the draw's not even been made yet. We don't know who we're going to be facing.
John's got his win in it.
I don't think we're going. Listen, we need to be realistic, right? It's going to be regardless of the team we've got, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to compete with the teams in the Champions League. What we do need to do is ensure that the team are well structured and they're playing the right way. And everybody's accountable for their own mistakes in the Champions League. And it doesn't just fall on Taylor. It doesn't just fall on Starfelt or anybody else that's playing. I mean, I'm pretty sure Hart might make a mistake and we'll let everybody be jumping his fucking back and so on and so on. Like, it's difficult to sort of say, but for me, we do have a weak link at left back in the Champions League with Taylor. And that because I just personally, he's good in the SPFL when you're dominating games and you've got 90% possession. But when you're coming up against much tougher teams, then these players are really going to get tested, and that's where we'll see what they're made of. So it's difficult to say now.
Yeah, I know 100%. I mean, Paul McFarlane, he's kind of what we hear, John. You got to be in it to win it, friendly. They're all loving this positivity in terms of what we're speaking about tonight. And then you look at Patrick McLaughlin. I said a few weeks back, if Burnaby wasn't up to speed, it could possibly be Juranovic at left back in the Champions League and Ralston at right back. If that's the case, then Frank Brennan's been right all summer. But it is okay, obviously, to point out where you think you're weak. And you look at the midfield, I do agree sometimes maybe we could be a bit more stronger, a bit more aggressive. But Ange Postecoglou's already said that's not his game. So you can't really go against that, can you?
That's one of them. It's you're either all in, man, so you're not. It's when with a manager, you either trust him or you don't. And I think he's got a lot of credit in the bank with the support now, the way he's performed. And it's to touch on. I think it was that point there. Like I said it weeks ago, there's no way we're seeing Juranovic. Apart from injuries, I don't see us seeing Juranovic at left back this season. You don't spend that money in Burnaby to play Juranovic at left back. I don't see it happening. It might happen now and again. I do understand what they're saying maybe in the Champions League because Juranovic will defensively maybe is a wee bit better, but I don't see it happening on very often, and certainly nowhere near how much he played last season. But I get where Frank's coming with Taylor and Starfelt. I mean, it goes back to Starfelt does make some needless fouls sometimes, so it gives you puts you under pressure when you don't need to be against better opposition. So it maybe will be one of the prime candidates to cause us issues. It's like John said, it's hard and a wee bit unfair to criticise players in the Champions League before they've kicked a ball in the tournament yet. So it's one of them. I can understand the argument there with Frank, because like I say, I'm far from Greg Taylor's biggest fan, but like I say, for a long while now, he's not put a foot wrong. So it deserves that chance. The midfield, I would like a Wanyama type boy, but
I think that's a great point by Paul Denton.
Aye. Yeah. You're up against top players, man.
Exactly.
Like, world class players. And look at Matt Riley. What was he? 1.5, and he's far from world class, but in our eyes, he's a superstar. He doesn't need to be the most expensive player in the world to actually be a really good player. But the midfield, I would love an enforcer type boy like a Wanyama would be great. But then to flip that, not comparing Celtic's midfield for to Barca's, but Busquets is actually quite big when you think about it, I forget I said that one. But fuck it, get Wanyama. Move on, Stephen. I thought it was going to make a valid point, and I forgot Busquets about 6'5", man.
I got you. Deadly duo. We're on par here. But I get what you're saying, right? Again, it's people not being negative. It's people pointing out points, and as Frank rightly said, what his negativity could be another person's realism. That's a great point as well. People see the game in different ways, different opinions, and it's great to debate about it and have a chat about it and things like that. And everyone in the comment section as well.
If you're standing still, that's no good. Ange will always be what he's trying to improve. And saying he's only wants Celtic, in his eyes, he's only wants Celtic to improve, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think Kevin 14, another member of the podcast channel, thanks for that, Kevin. Ange wants to be stronger as a unit. And I think that's quite right, John, when you see at the end of the game, the build-up play to that final goal, Aaron Moy was involved in the foot. I think at one point he wanted to strike the ball. It kind of got took off him as he was running up the banging enemy, but a intricate play. Abada, turn and swivel, bottom right-hand corner from outside the box. Great finish. And as Franny said, sometimes you forget his contribution last season. I think it was 16 goals and 10 or 12 assists in that run. Fantastic. And I seen this interview that he done about Beaton leaving and how much that's kind of not affected him, but got to him. He was crying, he was emotional. But again, Beaton's helped him lay his bed at Celtic Park, and hopefully again this season he kind of excels himself and moves forward and gets loads more goals.
What?
John? What?
You cut out. I didn't hear what half.
I said. I was going to say.
Then you came to me and I was like,
perfectly valid question.
That's me done. I'm out now, my John. Now, what I was saying, like, we've seen this interview about Beaton leaving. He was emotional. Beaton's kind of laid that path for him at Celtic Park, and it's time for Abada to take his mantle on and score loads of goals in the coming seasons.
Aye. I mean, I think that's what we expect him. I mean, you kind of want all the players to pick up for what they did last season in terms of their contributions. I think it's a bit unfair to say that we've forgotten what Abada was done last year. But again, what it alludes to the strength we've got throughout the team and the players that we've signed, because you've got that level of depth, and you can't please everybody. You can't start everybody. So you have to pick the best team on the day. And Ange is obviously the best man to do that. He's best placed to decide who's going to be starting, who's going to be doing what. And it doesn't mean that these players, like, let's say, if Ange decides throughout the course of the season to opt with Maida, Kyogo and Jota on the right, and that means Abada's no starting, his numbers are going to drop just because of that reason alone. But that doesn't mean he's still not capable of doing what he done last year. And he showed what he was capable of when he came on against Ross County. And the way he took his goal as well. I think he's still a bit raw in the sense that he snatches at chances sometimes, and his first touch can be a wee bit off. But I mean, he's definitely a player who's developing still. And what's great for us is he is only going to get better, and he's still got another few gears in him, I think. So I think we're definitely going to benefit for the long term.
100%. I do agree with you there. And if I cut out anyone else, I do apologise. But you get a gist of what we were talking about there.
Headphones, mate,
in terms of what we're saying about
said, like
Abada, Francis. And thank you for saying you heard it, because I thought it was a very valid point it was making. Sure. And obviously, what you mentioned before in terms of people forgetting, I didn't mean obviously totally forgetting, but when you look at this season, we're talking about Mieta, Jada, Kyogo, all that. It's like fair play. But Abada, as John says, only going to get better. I do get what he's saying he was wrong, because sometimes last season when he cut in, he hit a shot that went poof, way over the bar, hit the corner flag or something. But the goal at Ross County, as William rightly said loads of times on here, should be uploaded to a certain site. It was fantastic. Like,
was there a go, and like you say, Greg Taylor started with his pressing high up the park and stuff late on in the game. Nice couple of 1-2s with Jota, then with Abada, and he just picked up and curled it in. And I think John makes a valid point. Like you say, I think it was about 20 odd goal contributions. If he gets something similar this season, then we're on for a great season with him. Because I think just the emergency, how well Maeda's done, it kind of then forces Jota out in the right. Forrest has obviously got that new deal, featured quite heavily, I think, in pre-season. So I think Forrest might feature. So I think it's more just Abada's game time will be obviously a lot of that will be determined on performance. When he comes in, he does perform, he's got to feature more. But I would be surprised if he hits those numbers again. I still expect him maybe double figures on assists and goals, which will be a great turner, great season for the guy. So it's just, I think he is still Roy's. He almost looks uncomfortable at times on the ball, but again, I think he's another, like many wingers, they're confidence players. If they're getting assists and beating their man, scoring goals, they're flying, they're wanting the ball all the time. But sometimes when it's not happening, they're maybe not interested, and they'll maybe run into the crowd area. But I think even at his young age, at 20-year-old, he never seemed to hide for a game. Even last season, where he was maybe in a wee sticky patch, never hid for the game. So it's exciting times now. It's for Celtic with guys like Abada, Jota, Maeda, and even Forrest and things like that. It's fast attacking, sort of tricky wingers. It's what we always want at Celtic. It's bums off seats players.
It's relentless. The we never stop football that Postecoglou wants us playing, and I think them options are great. I mean, you can interchange that, you can rotate it, and it's still as strong as the last kind of formation that was put out last players involved. But we're going to get on to everyone's favourite subject here, John, especially you. I know you love talking about this, and that is
for half an hour. I'm going to bow the kettle.
You're going to put the kettle on that long hallway of yours? Is there a plug for a kettle?
There is.
But it's media bias in Scotland. And I know, like, people might go, I was speaking about this, but I think it was pointed out on Twitter, John, like, it was absolutely rifler over the weekend. We need it rescued. The other side excelled a 2-0 victory, even though it wasn't that at all. And it's just one of these things. And I heard the interview that Postecoglou done on the BBC with, I can't remember her name, but it was just along the lines of, was it difficult? She was repeating herself a lot, and he was like, look, we controlled the game. We got through a difficult patch. We excelled. We were comfortable. We were relentless. All he ever wants. What do you say about this? Because I don't want you to give me a half-baked answer. I want you to just tell
me. Listen, you and everybody else that's watched this podcast or listened to me before, and we've touched on the subject of the media, know exactly how I feel about it. And they're doing nothing to change my mind in any way. And like you said, we're always going to see bias in the media, and especially what is it? The BBC even reported that it's 3-1 to Ross County. At some point, it was they absolutely made an asset, and we were the very last score reported as well. I think Rangers were at the top of that list. We were dead bottom, and it was 3-1 Ross County. Even though when you read the description, it was like Celtic won. But it just shows you the absolute amateur fucking level of journalism that's going on when it comes to this country and its football. And I expect no less. They're all rats, and as far as they can all I've said it before. Listen, for me, see if I was and I had any say at Celtic at all, the likes of the BBC and the Sun wouldn't get anywhere near Celtic Park. You don't need them. They'll report on you regardless because they need to sell papers and they need clicks on their web. I don't think the BBC would really care. We're not going to run grovelling and all that like Rangers did. But just tell them, like, we don't need you here. Like, get the fuck. They don't offer us anything. They don't offer us. There's nothing constructive about anything that they do or anything that they say. I've nothing but disdain for them. I hate them.
I think that's a great point by William. I've seen the banners calling out the.
And by the way,
the kind of level.
If this is the thing as well, how many media outlets have reported on banners with other teams? It's like, but if we put a banner up calling out the media, it'd be on the news, it'd be this, that, certain things would be said and all the rest of it. We don't need them anywhere near Celtic Park. They're going to report on the game and the result regardless because they have to. They've got sports divisions that have to report on certain things like that. Anything that they are writing at the minute is absolute shite. It's nonsense. And like I said, there's an element of bias and it's unmissable. Like you can't actually read an article and then someone and say, there's no bias here. But like I said, when BBC are listing the weekend's results and Celtic are dead last and they've reported that it's 3-1 to Ross County, like there's no proofreading. They're amateur as fuck. Just let them go, man.
Yeah, I think Stevie Boy kind of nailed this, John. What you were saying, they need us more than we need them. I think that's a fantastic point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know that you probably could have an hour to yourself just doing this screen talking about how you feel about the journalism and media here.
Can I just add in? Sorry, just one other thing. See, when it comes to it, like the BBC don't pay us.
That was a wee bit short for you.
I'm saying. But like, even when it comes to like Sky Sports, see when you see Sky Sports and all that involved in English media and all that, they pay an absolute fortune for that privilege, right? So that's understandable, but we don't get fuck all off them. So like BBC we owe them nothing. Like, why are we pandering to them and why are we continuing to let them do what they're doing? At what point 100%. Do you just turn around and just say, you know what, we don't need you. Bye.
Well, you look at the kind of celebratory nature that they got back into the team across the city this year, so they're kind of loving the loving over there, Francis. And I think William comes in saying when Chris Boyd is on every Sky game, you cannot say there isn't a bias in the media. The bitterness oozes out of them. I totally agree because in that first game I watched, it was the panel was on. I didn't see Chris Boyd, and I was like, "Oh, this is great." And next minute it was like Chris Boyd in the gantry, and you're like, "Is this where they're hiding him now to get him into these games?" Like,
exactly.
Why? Do you know what I mean? It's pointless. Like
you're doing nothing. You're putting him there to do nothing but cause a fucking stir, and you know you're going to get folk talking about it. Why even put yourself in that position? See, as soon as they mention, by the way, we're going to bring Chris Boyd. Sorry, I can't even fucking see. I know I'm raging. I'm fucking furious. No, listen, they're going to bring as soon as they mention Chris Boyd, and he's going to be in the gantry commentating on the game. Like, nah, jog on.
Yeah, 100%. And Franny, in terms of yourself, I mean. You kind of brought up the point when we first spoke about the summary of the gaming thing, Will. You mentioned that certain factions of the media have labelled as a rescue or as a needy win or as one of these ones we had to dig out. What's your opinion on it overall?
Well, I've just, excuse me for going on my phone here because I tend to note this. So we had 7 shots on target, 9 off target to their 2 on both. 78% possession. 12 corners to their 3. I know that was easy for me to say. And then, so if that's struggling through a game, then I don't know what is. Like, I don't know how that is as convincing a performance as you've got to get. But the media, like it was obvious last season, I wouldn't say Chris Boyd sort of go. Like Chris Boyd is just, see when you just need to watch him waffle and struggle when he's got to analyse any game. He's horrendous at it. Absolutely no clue. I can remember there was a couple of times Sean Maloney was on both Sky and Sportscene, and you just, like, Chris Boyd was he just got shown up for how stupid he was when it comes to analysing games. But Chris Boyd, and along with Chris Boyd as well, like, he summed up his bitterness at one game where he talks about something and he's always got to hear a slide dig at Celtic and stuff. And it's like, mate, you're there to report on the football. You're not here to
Exactly.
It's all we it's trying to play the pantomime villain with him.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Chris Sutton obviously done it on BT Sport, but what Chris Sutton done good was he always bigged up the Scottish game, always bigged it up. Whereas Chris
He
just
called
that,
out
by the
Celtic
way.
too. He called out
Aye.
Celtic too.
Sutton wasn't shy. If Celtic done
But
something wrong,
it was kind of the pantomime villain on BT Sport to an extent, but it backed it up with knowledge of the game. Whereas Chris Boyd's is absolutely zero. Then you've also got Hugh Keevins now. Hugh Keevins is either the most intelligent guy in the world or the most stupidest guy in the world. Well, let's be like, he does a phone in, so it could be making these controversial statements because then it will get folk phoning in. Like,
of course he is, but he believes it. That's the problem.
How can he make a statement like Celtic, like predicts Rangers are going to win the league? He's well within his rights to predict Rangers are going to win the league. But then to back up by saying he thinks Celtic's dodgy defence will come unstuck at times and their strikers may struggle. Now, we had the best defensive record and scored the most goals, so you can't back that up with the two reasons.
No, but he genuinely.
So he either believes it or he is saying it. So folk phone up his program at his party.
Let's try and get Hugh Keevins on so I can fucking.
And then I think at the weekend he was saying Celtic are struggling. This will finish 1-1. Then 2 minutes later we scored, but. I'm kind of leaning on the side that Hugh Keevins.
Well said, Frank.
I'm not comparing. It's more.
I know what you're trying to say, Franny, but aye.
Yeah.
Hugh Keevins is either a really intelligent man or a really stupid guy, and I think it's somewhere in the middle. He kens what to say to get folk phoning in the show.
Yeah, we went from Chris Boyd to Hugh Keevins. How did that even happen? But I do get what
you brought up the media.
I know.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I mean, the different landscapes of what we're talking about. That's a phone in, and then Chris Boyd and the gantry of Celtic Park hiding, as he usually does now. And I think just to sum it up, everyone here in the comments is...
Right, Sean.
Sorry,
that's a bit harsh, sir.
That was a bit aggressive. I know. I don't want to yell, obviously.
No, but I mean, everyone again has their own opinions on the media, and I think we all can agree, kind of overall here, that it's kind of shit for us because they kind of bring us down. And as John rightly said, Hugh Keevins sells Avon as well with William there. That's a cracker. And then again, we'll move on to the kind of quick kind of roundup of the transfer rumours, John. And the one that's kind of burning my ears at the minute is this rumour that Ross Barkley, Celtic are interested in Chelsea midfielder Ross Barkley for a loan. Apparently he's on 180k a week. He played 6 times last year for Chelsea. By all accounts, he's kind of down a death down there in terms of his footballing career. What are you thinking on that one? Because it's a bit of a weird one for me.
A loan's the only way he's ever going to come anywhere near Celtic because we can't afford his wages. And Chelsea would have to agree to pay at least 90% of that for that to even be feasible. And I just can't see that happening. But again, where do most of these rumours come from? They get drummed up. I think a lot of media reporting as well like to just throw Celtic's name in to create stories as well. And I've said that before. I think what I take most things I read with a pinch of salt when it comes to transfer rumours. Well, I'll happily discuss them, but I think this one's just kind of with their sort of price range, so to speak. When you consider the fact the wage cut he would have to take, like I said, Chelsea aren't going to let him go and pay his full fucking wage, and we'd have to pay, like I said, you're looking at about 80-85% of his wage. Chelsea would have to cover for it to be feasible, and if they want to get rid of him, then that's going to be the very last option they're taking. They'll look at everything else before that. So I can't see it happening. Yeah,
and it's a strange one, Franny. It kind of came out a couple of days ago saying he's been earmarked for a move and people have made contact with Chelsea and things. Obviously, as John rightly said there, you take him with a pinch of salt, you don't know what's happening. Patrick McLaughlin comes in. There was a Marseille striker linked with us earlier on today. I can't remember his name, but it's off the basis they just signed Alexis Sanchez on a free transfer. They're trying to ship this guy out, and I think we're one of the clubs interested. But the Barkley one's obviously the more prominent rumour, and in terms of the only one we can really speak about that's kind of gathering a wee bit of pace. And I heard someone earlier on saying it could be our version of Aaron Ramsey, and you don't want to go down that road, like.
You don't, and I can understand that argument because his injury record, but of late. But I would take him in a heartbeat. But I'm with John. I don't see how it happens with the money side of it. I think he does improve our midfield. There's no denying he is a good player, and I think if it did come up here, it would come up with a point to prove. I would hope he would I would hope he is, because as we've seen, Ange signs the person first. So we'd be cut if you're bringing Barkley in, it's because he's got the right attitude. The only thing one of the big things that I don't see it happening is money aside, it's obviously got to be a loan deal, but our loan deal should be loan with an option to buy or obligation to buy. I just didn't see that happening with Barkley, and I didn't really think that's Ange's way of bringing in a guy just for a season. But again, you just don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Ross Barkley is an absolute superstar, but he's a really good player. He is a really good player. And I would, if it can be done, I would have him at Celtic. And I think he is the type of player that would help us in the Champions League. So maybe Postecoglou's looking at it going, I can maybe accommodate one loan guy that I'm not just for the season, for the sake of the Champions League. Whereas I think when we are going to target the loan market, most it will be loan with an option to buy, and that fee, like the Jota and Carter Vickers thing, will already be agreed. But
the thing is, though, right? See if you're just to touch on what you said there, Francis. See if you are looking at players on that kind of money, and you're looking at clubs to maybe take a player on loan, and then saying, right, it's just going to be a loan deal. There's no option to buy. It's no something we're going to pick up in future. It's just a loan to see out the season and strengthen in the meantime. And you're looking at players that are on that kind of money, and you're looking for the club to pay that. There's far better options.
Yeah,
I would agree, but it's getting the players in. It's clear that Chelsea didn't want Barkley. Clearly didn't want him, so it might be an easier
deal. So that's
deal.
why it makes it all unrealistic, because
it might make an easier deal to do, to get him at the door short term. It puts him in the short window for a season, and then they maybe get a better fee for him next season if he performs in the Champions League. I'll be honest, but I mean, it'll never happen, because without getting into how much money the other team across the city's got, I would be trying to get Gilmore, who clearly hasn't got any future at Chelsea. But if he's available and Celtic are going from, you bet your bottom dollar Rangers will be going from, if we can afford them, Rangers could afford them, and I think we know where we go first.
Aye. One player I do want to keep an eye on for the coming seasons, just kind of round it off, is Dylan Levitt for Dundee United. He's a baller, by the way. I seen him in that European game against Alkmaar, and he
kept
the
Man
ball
United or something.
Aye, for 300 grand. I had him on loan last season, but he's a really good player. He kept the ball well. He was moving up the pitch, and every pass he done was forward. You don't really expect it for a team like Dundee United to take on Alkmaar in that kind of pressure state and play like that kind of football. So that could be one for the future. We never know. I just think for myself, he looked good from the couple of games I have seen him playing. But in terms of the podcast, that is us rounded up. And come to yourselves, John and Francis. Have you enjoyed this one?
Aye, it's good to be back on, mate. I miss it.
What about yourself, Franny? In your hallway?
Aye, good. I'm just hoping the heat doesn't. It's fucking getting warm in here, and I've not got a fan. I might need to go to a shop, man.
Yeah, and Paul Dad comes in. Gilmore would put up for adoption if he signed for us. But again, just everyone who's watched along, we're at 77 live, by the way, and it's absolutely fantastic. And again, get involved in Super 6. The league code is there. Download the app. We have the St. Martin's, Scottish Mental Health, and breathing space for anyone who's experienced any difficulties throughout their life. Need to speak to someone, please reach out to us. Call them numbers. There's always help where it's needed. And the membership as well, get involved, 99p a month. John made the emojis. It helps the channel. Really appreciate the support. And till next time, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.